Today we are sharing the second half of our two-part series on foods every woman over 50 should be eating. And ladies, please share this info with any significant other, if you have a friend or a relative, because these are foods anybody can benefit from. And if you haven't watched part one, we suggest going back and watching that first, where we share our 1 through 5 picks, and then come back here and look at what we choose for 6 to 10. We'll drop a link in the description below so you can access that really easily. So to summarize, we chose these foods mostly due to their nutritional benefits, particularly as it concerns our health as we move into our second half. And aside from just weight, we just see so many women already dealing with or wanting to prevent, of course, things like heart disease, hypertension, and rising blood sugars, and osteoporosis, and memory loss. And the good news is that many compounds in the foods we chose can help combat so many of these concerns. And we also looked for foods that support our cells in one way or another, because the health of our cells is really at the root of everything and is going to drive our overall health and longevity. And one of the main reasons for that, in a nutshell, is that a healthy cell will be able to absorb the nutrients it needs to thrive and survive, while at the same time eliminate any toxins or debris that it needs to get out. So that's crucial. Finally, we kept our list of foods that are relatively easy to find in grocery stores. We wanted to make it easy for you and accessible, and not have you running around to all different kinds of crazy places to get exotic foods. If you are looking for more wellness and weight loss advice for women over 50, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to be notified when we post a video. So here we are, moving on to number 6 on our list is leafy greens. All right, this is a little bit of a cheat because leafy greens incorporates several different foods. These include things like arugula, collard, Swiss chard, beet greens, kale, mustard greens, spinach, watercress. Leafy greens have a rich vitamin and mineral content, and that includes things like calcium, magnesium, potassium, vitamin K, beta carotene, which is also known as vitamin A, converts to vitamin A, folate, and fiber. And this makes them really amazing for bone health and heart health, and they're great also for cancer prevention. Leafy greens are well known for containing two sort of famous carotenoids, lutein and zeaxanthin, and these are what we call serious, super powerful antioxidants that can reduce the risk of eye problems like macular degeneration and cataracts, and these are much more prominent as we age. Some of you may have even been encountering this already. Lutein also plays a neuroprotective role, so it's really good for the brain, specifically as it relates to attention and the ability to focus. Study results suggest that people who eat even one serving of green leafy vegetables a day may experience a slower rate of decline on tests of memory and thinking skills than people who rarely or never eat them. So that's really cool. There was also another study that shared how older adults who eat at least one serving of leafy green vegetables a day show an equivalent of being 11 years younger cognitively. Wow! So you can't get more powerful than that. Here's another really cool thing about leafy greens is that they've been found to help maintain sufficient levels of something called nitric oxide in the body. So nitric oxide, which we'll shorten as NO, helps to widen blood vessels. And this is really important because it serves as protection against hypertension and heart disease and also stroke. In our post-menopause years, we lose some of our nitric oxide production because estrogen is actually a hormone that boosts nitric oxide. So when estrogen declines, we lose that NO source. So eating leafy greens is a really good way to help maintain those levels. And another cool thing is that leafy greens can be very beneficial for weight management and weight loss because you can add them to almost anything and they bulk up your food, your meal, so that your meal looks bigger, is bigger and is more filling, but the calories are so low that you get filled up on less calories. So that's super cool. Ways that we eat them are endless. You can put leafy greens in salads. Obviously, we add them to smoothies. We put them on top of burgers. You can blanch collard wraps or use butter lettuce to make a wrap instead of using bread. You can chop them up and put them in soup. They're great in stir fries, amazing for sautés. Whole grains is a great place where we use them to stretch that. So you just chop up a ton of greens, put them in your quinoa or your rice, and it turns into a much bigger portion, but less calories. So if getting greens is a challenge for you, you're in luck because we have this really cool free guide that has lots of ideas and recipes using leafy greens. So we're going to drop that in the description below and you can access that anytime. So moving on to number 7, we have cruciferous vegetables. So crucifers is also another little cheat because it incorporates several different vegetables, but they belong to a really important family called the Brassica family. And many leafy greens actually fall into this as well. But there's some other cruciferous vegetables that many of you are probably familiar with, such as bok choy, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, turnips, radishes, broccoli, and cauliflower. And probably the coolest thing about cruciferous vegetables is that they contain compounds that help activate the body's natural detoxification process. In particular, especially as it relates to women in our age group, their superpower is helping clear excess bad estrogen out of the body down a pathway that's more favorable to reducing breast cancer risk. So that's really significant. And the reason is because it's due to a compound called indole 3-carbinol, which helps break down further into two metabolites called sulforaphane and DIM. So the bottom line is that because crucifers are one of the only food sources of these compounds that can help prevent this bad estrogen from accumulating in the body, you definitely want to be including them several times a week. And high intake of cruciferous vegetables is also associated with a lower risk of cardiovascular disease. Crucifers are also, oh my God, they're loaded with so many vitamins and minerals. They're a good source of plant-based calcium, which most people don't think about, vitamin C, vitamin K, potassium, and darker cruciferous vegetables like leafy greens and broccoli also contain a lot of beta carotene, which converts into vitamin A. So lots of great nutrients to get in cruciferous vegetables. And there are numerous ways to eat them. We roast them, we shave them into salads, you can make soups out of them and saute them, of course. So there's endless ways to get in your cruciferous vegetables.
Alrighty, so let's move on to our third favorite food, which is actually number 8 in our top 10, and that is beans and lentils. So beans and lentils are often underrated and so important for us women over 50. They're rich in B vitamins, magnesium, and compounds that can help your body produce natural progesterone. And these are all important to help with mood and bone health and sleep, and actually may help relieve depression as well. Due to their fiber and protein content, they are helpful in balancing blood sugar and increasing insulin sensitivity, which we talk about all of the time is so important. In addition, although different beans and lentils have different profiles, for the most part they contain calcium, iron, zinc, potassium, and manganese, which are great for many functions in the body and bone density. This is really important as so many women think only about dairy when it comes to supporting their bones through food. But there are so many other foods that can help you support your bones besides dairy. Now, most beans have a high level of vitamin B6 and folate, both of which can lessen something called homocysteine in your body. High homocysteine is often an indicator of increased risk for heart disease, stroke, and accelerated aging. And these nutrients can also help eliminate some toxic compounds from the brain. So when it comes to fiber, navy beans have the highest amount of fiber at 19 grams per cup, and kidney beans have about 16 grams. But all beans are rich in fiber, so really any bean will do. And there's tons of ways to add beans to your diet. For example, chickpeas can be added to salads. Of course, you can make it into a hummus or buy a ready-made hummus. You can even puree something like chickpeas with a little bit of salt and use that instead of mashed potatoes. Other ways are adding beans or lentils to soups, stews, meats, pasta. Of course, making chili is an awesome option, and also I love the three bean salad. It's so delicious. You can also use beans or lentils to make veggie burgers. The options are really endless when it comes to beans. Just find a way and get them in. Ready to move on? Let's go to number 9. An apple a day, you know what they say. So it's apples. Apples have lots of nutrients, including vitamin C, potassium, and several other vitamins and minerals. In addition, apples are a great source of polyphenols and fiber. So a medium apple has about 4 grams of fiber. Apples have been linked to so many health benefits, including improved gut health, reduced risk of stroke, high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, and some cancers. And this is attributed to the fact that they're high in soluble fiber, antioxidants, and also contain a compound that helps prevent LDL cholesterol from oxidizing. There was a study done out of the University of Oxford that compared the effects of eating one daily apple to taking a statin drug. And this was among adults age 50 and up. That's our population, right? The participants made no other dietary changes or lifestyle changes. And the results concluded that eating an apple a day had almost the same outcome as the statin group for as far as reducing mortality. In fact, they estimated that if 70% of the over 50 population in the United Kingdom simply ate one apple a day, about 8,500 deaths every year due to heart attack or stroke could be averted. Wow! Like, this is huge. And listen, we're not saying go off your medication for sure. If you want to talk to your doctor about that, that's fine. But if you're not taking a statin, this is a great way to help prevent heart disease or stroke, and certainly a wonderful food to include on a regular basis. So there's also some pretty compelling research around the effect of apples and apple juice on dementia. That's because apples and apple juice work directly in reducing free radical damage and maintaining optimal brain levels of something called acetylcholine, which is the main neurotransmitter that our brains use to communicate with nerve cells. So keep in mind, though, when it comes to the juice, they can have a lot of sugar, so we prefer using the whole fruit. So let's talk about ways to incorporate apples. Pretty easy, right? Apple is truly, it's like a fast food, right? You could just grab it and go. And if possible, we suggest getting apples that are organic because they do tend to have a high pesticide residue. But, you could take an apple with you anywhere, throw it in a bag if you're heading out, add an apple to your lunch, have one as a snack. I like having them cut up with some almond butter, or add a few walnuts in for extra credit. Go back to our first video to see why you want to add walnuts in, or chop one up and add it to oatmeal or chia pudding. Another way I love to eat apples is to cut them up and saute them with a little bit of water and then add cinnamon in it. Oh, it's so yummy. So there's just some ideas, but we're sure that you can come up with a ton of ways to eat apples. All right, you ready for the last but not least? It is pomegranates. So pomegranate seeds, or arils as they're often called, are really a nutritional and healing powerhouse. They're high in phytochemicals and antioxidants, especially polyphenols. And in fact, research has found that pomegranate have more antioxidant potential than red wine or green tea. Wow! Pretty amazing, right? For these reasons, pomegranates can reduce disease risk factors, including high blood pressure, high cholesterol, oxidative stress, and hyperglycemia due to its anti-inflammatory activities. They also have small amounts of lignans, as we described in our part 1 video, though not nearly as much as flax seeds, but still have a great benefit. Research has also found that pomegranates have neuroprotective effects. This might be due to their anti-inflammatory properties, since neuroinflammation is a factor in many brain diseases. One study published in the Journal of Traditional and Complementary Medicine found that pomegranate's high level of antioxidants was beneficial in the treatment of animals with Alzheimer's disease. So pretty cool. Let's talk about ways to get the pomegranates in. And we know they're not always easy to find. They're more in season here in North America from like the fall to early winter. But if you can find the whole pomegranate, we're going to share an amazing little tool in the description below. but it's an easy way to get the pomegranate arils out of the core. And what we would suggest is buying several at a time and get them out and then just freeze them so you don't have to use them all at once. They also have bags of frozen arils. Sometimes you can find those in the frozen section. I also see often the cups of the arils already cut out, so that saves you time. And then if you get a few of those, you could freeze those as well, and then just take them out as you need them. So what do you do with these arils once you have them? Well, you can certainly eat them straight as a snack. You can add them to salads. You can dump some in smoothies. If you want to juice them, that's a great way to get that as well. Or you could just buy juice and look for one that's organic, and you want to get them in a glass jar if possible. Aim for about, if you're going to do the juice, aim for about 2 ounces a day. So you don't need too much of it. And if you have any favorite ways of cooking or using pomegranates, please share in the comments below, because we can all help each other out. In fact, let us know if you eat any of the foods mentioned today and your favorite way to eat them. So we go into incorporating these foods and other anti-inflammatory foods in our PM Meal Mastery program. It's a great plan of what to eat after 50 in more detail with examples and recipes. So be sure to check out our PM Meal Mastery program, where we help take out the guesswork of what to eat to support your body, your brain, and your bones, and of course your metabolism during these years of change, without spending hours in the kitchen or feeling deprived, hungry, or cranky. And you can check this out in the link below. As always, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified of future content so we know you want to hear more. And check out our next video for even more support on managing weight and health after 50.